Hi Flutes. If you found this video from the other video, I want to take a couple minutes to refresh our memories on how to put the flute together, how to hold it correctly, and how to produce our very first notes with the correct embouchure. And then we can head back to the other video and play 2 to 11 in our book. But we're going to start with our instrument in our case. And remember, when we are using our instruments, we're going to take very, very good care that nothing happens to them. So we're going to sit flat in our chair, we're going to keep our feet flat on the floor, and lay the instrument on our lap where it's nice and sturdy. We're not going to cross our legs and try to balance it. We're not going to put it on a music stand. We're going to keep it right on our lap. We're going to open up the case with the latches facing us, and we're going to put the three parts together. The first two parts that go together are the body of the flute and the head joint. When we put the head joint into the flute, we want to make sure that we go straight in and we don't start on an angle and scoop it in like this. That's how we'll bend this tenon. We won't get a good strong seal. So we're going to take the head joint and line it up and wiggle it gently. Notice I'm using real small motions to wiggle it onto the body of the flute. Okay? If you notice, there's a little bit of discoloration here at the bottom of our head joint. We want a tiny bit of that showing. This is way too much. It's about 1 inch, and that's all the way in. And we don't play our flute with the head joint all the way in. We want to wiggle it out so there's about 1/4 of an inch showing. The other thing we have to remember about our head joint is that we want the tone hole to line up perfectly with these keys on the top of our flute body. So we're going to rotate it until it's perfectly in line. If it's too far forward or too far back, that's going to make the instrument difficult to play. That's our head joint and our body. We'll take the foot joint and we'll do the exact same thing. We're not going to scoop it on. We're going to go straight in, and with little tiny wiggle motions, we're going to wiggle it on till it stops. That part goes all the way in. The next thing to remember about this, on the foot joint, is we've got this tiny key on the bottom of our body, and at the top of our foot joint, we've got this little ball hinge. And so we're going to rotate our foot joint so that this rod and the ball are perfectly in the center of the very last key. We want to make sure that that ball is exactly in line with the middle of the bottom key on our body. Okay? Now that we've got the flute together, we're going to talk about how to hold it. And we're going to finger the very first note that we have to play in the book, which is D. So we're going to talk about that fingering now. The reason why I like to start with D is because we use a lot of fingers, and that gives us a firm grip on the flute to play our first note. So here on the back of the flute, our left thumb is going to go on this big, fat, long key on the back of the flute. When we come around to the front, we're not going to use our first finger for D. We're going to be using our middle two fingers. And those fingers are going to fall on this key and this key. Okay, we're skipping this one and this one. Okay, for now, we're not using those keys. Okay? On our right hand, to finish up playing D, we're going to use these 3 fingers on the last 3 keys of the body. 1, 2, and 3. And on the back of the flute, our thumb is resting up underneath this rod with the tip of the thumb pushing against the flute. We don't want our thumb to start curling underneath like this. Don't try and cradle the flute with the thumb. Keep the thumb in the back. So to review, for playing D, thumb on the big key, around the front of the flute, fingers 2 and 3. On the right hand, 1, 2, and 3, with the thumb in the back. That gives us a good strong grip on the flute. When we bring it up to our embouchure, now we've got a third point of security to hold the flute. And that'll give us good playing position. Keep in mind, we do not want to have the flute resting on our shoulder. We're not going to tilt our head down and bring our body to meet the flute. We're going to bring the flute to meet our body. So when we're going to play our very first notes, we're in our chair. We're going to scoot forward in the chair so that our back is not touching the back of the chair. That'll help us breathe and that'll help us keep good posture. Our feet are flat on the floor. Our shoulders are up but relaxed, and our chin is up. And we're going to bring the flute with our D fingering already locked in place up to our embouchure. So let's talk about our embouchure and playing our very first note. The thing to remember is that we want to keep our embouchure opening very small in the center of our lips. If the opening is too large, we won't have the air focused enough to produce a strong tone on the flute. If the opening is too small, then we won't get enough air into the instrument to make a tone. So it's got to be just the right size. We want to pull the corners back almost as if we're smiling, and that'll stretch our lips out so that they're elongated and tight. If our lips move forward when we play, we can't make a tiny opening. It's almost impossible. We don't want any puckered lips, and I'm sure you're laughing at me right now, which is okay. Pull the lips back, and that gives us a nice stretched opening for the center. When we want to play our first note, we're going to rest our lips gently together, pull them back at the corners, almost as if we're going, I like to remember that I'm thinking of my favorite food when I play, and I'm pulling the corners back, and my lips are resting slightly together, and they give you that nice shape. And that's a great flute playing shape. Once we got that corners back shape, we're going to bring the flute up, and we're going to take the tone hole and rest the tone hole flat against our lips. And the reason we do that is because we can use the feeling on our lips to help us determine if the flute is not in the center, if it's too high or too low or too far to either side. We want to feel the tone hole right in the center. And you should feel the same amount of tone hole on the top lip as on the bottom lip. When you've got the shape and the tone holes in the center, the last part is to gently roll the flute forward. If you roll it too far forward, you're not going to feel the tone hole on your bottom lip anymore. That's not good. You want to make sure that the flute is rolled forward enough so that you can direct the air down into it, but not too far that you can't feel the tone hole on your bottom lip. You still got to feel that. Flat against the lips, roll it forward, feel the tone hole on your bottom lip. We'll get our fingers in that D position, and we're going to pull our lips back slightly, and with a tiny opening, we're going to direct air into the instrument with a great big breath. Here's that breath. Let's try that again. Let's take a great big breath together. Ready? Play. Couple things to keep in mind. Don't push the lips forward. Keep the lips back. And the most important thing to remember when you're starting every note is to start every note with the tongue. Hear that strong T sound? Tu, tu. If you say the word tu with me, that's how the tongue operates to start every note. If we just start every note without that T sound, we get this. And that doesn't produce a good start to every note. The T with the tongue is how we start every note. Let's review a couple things. Let's get our fingers into D position. Thumb on the front of the flute. 2, 3. Right hand. 1, 2, 3. Pinky isn't used right now. Thumb is behind the flute, not underneath. Our feet are flat on the floor. We're scooted forward in our chair. Our backs are straight. Our shoulders are relaxed. We're going to bring the flute up to our embouchure. Don't rest it on the shoulder. Don't tilt the head. None of this, none of this, none of this. Keep that chin up. That'll get our air directed in the right direction. Pull the corners back like we're making our shape. Take a great big breath. And now we're going to start every note with a t-t-two beginning. Let's play 3 Ds in a row. Ready? Breathe. And play. hold that note until you expel all of your air. Let's breathe in again. Put the air way down low into your lungs and play with a T. And to end every note, we're going to put our tongue back up to the roof of our mouth to make that T shape again. And that's how we start and end every note. Here's our last time. Ready? Breathe in. So that's the beginning of putting our flute together, how to create our embouchure, how to hold it, how to sit properly with our posture. And now we can go back to that other video and start playing through the book with me. I hope that helps, and I hope you continue to enjoy your instrument. We'll see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.